27 years later. Great job, RoboCop. We finna get into this, y'all. But first, intro. How long will they mourn me? I wish it would have been another. How long will they mourn me? How long will they mourn my brother? Hey, what's good, guys? It is your boy Jason JV saying welcome to another reaction video. And apparently, for damn near 30 years later, they finally arrested Tupac's alleged killer from the 1996 Tupac's Vegas murder. You know what I'm saying? Apparently, Keefe D is the suspect in question. You know what I'm saying? They just arrested him, and if I were Diddy, I start saying my prayers. I start saying my Hail Marys, my Jesuses, because Keefe D has put Diddy on blast by saying he looked out for Diddy in the Art of Dialogue interviews. Oh yeah, go watch those Art of Dialogue interviews that featured Keefe D. That dude be singing like a whole canary. And not only that, but he also threw Orlando Anderson, who was Keefe D's deceased nephew, under the bus by saying that Orlando Anderson was the one who supposedly pulled the trigger. Well, Keefe D in these interviews has also said that he was in the car, and that supposedly he was riding shotgun, no pun intended, and the shots came from the back of the car that he was riding in, which I call bullshit on that, because it has been reported that Keefe D not only had, I believe he had the weapon, and I know for sure he had the bullets, because he actually admitted to having the bullets. And a lot of people were questioning, why would you keep the bullets? You know what I'm saying? That match the bullets from like the murder scene. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fucking stupid. But anyway, we're about to check into this press conference. It's a brief press conference. It's about 17 minutes, 44 seconds long. We're gonna hear what Officer Peabody here has to say. So anyway.
For 27 years, the family of Tupac Shakur has been waiting for justice. We are here.
You don't say. 27 years. I hardly call that justice. I say too little, too damn late. I mean, thank God we finally know who was responsible. And but still, too little, too damn late, man. I hardly call that justice. Man, giving himself a big old pat on the back like he just did something good.
We're here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis, a.k.a. Keefe D, for the murder.
60 years of age is Keefe D. So you mean to tell me this man got to live a good portion of his life as a free man, knowing full well that he was responsible in the death of Tupac? Okay.
Murder of Tupac Shakur. Davis was arrested this morning by my LVMPD criminal apprehension team, and this investigation started on the night of September 7th, 1996. It is far from over. It has taken countless hours, really decades, of work by the men and women of our homicide section to get to where we are today.
You don't say.
Several of those detectives that are standing here with us include Detective Cliff Mogg, the lead detective on this case. He is now retired. Well, I know there's been many people who did not believe that the murder of Tupac Shakur was important to this police department. I'm here to tell you.
Well, evidently it wasn't, because, I mean, like I said, it took you 27 years.
That was simply not the case. It was not the case back then, and it is not the case today.
Bullshit!
Our goal at LVMPD has always been to hold those accountable and responsible for Tupac's violent murder accountable. Just like we do for every homicide victim in our
Yeah, well, I'll believe that when you bring Puffy in for questioning.
city. Every single victim, every life that is lost is important and remains a priority to this police department. As we methodically built this case to move forward with an arrest, it was also important that at the same time, we're building towards a successful prosecution. We work closely with our esteemed district attorney, Steve Wolfson, in his office to ensure that is going to happen. Mr. Davis's own words reinvigorated our case in 2018. I'm going to give you some of those details, and I'm going to introduce to you our homicide lieutenant, Jason Johansson, and he will provide you many of the details on how we got here today. Lieutenant.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, everybody, for being here today. My name is Jason Johansson, and I'm the homicide lieutenant with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
Bro, you be making us Jasons look bad, man, because, again, 27 years. Come on now, bro.
And my goal here today is to walk you through our investigation and what led us to the indictment of Dwayne Davis, also known as Keefe D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur. This case has been reviewed by our homicide team and homicide detectives for over 2.5 decades.
Like I said, you don't say. 2.5 decades. Bruh. So that means, if this is true, because I know we're going to get some Tupac alive theorists down there, and trust me, I want to believe Tupac is still alive. I want to believe that. I really, really do. But it looks like since they finally have a suspect in the murder case, those alive theories are most likely debunked. I hate to admit it. I hate to say it. You know what I mean? Again, I want to believe dude is still alive. But I mean, it's been 27 years. People were saying, oh, he's going to pop up, you know, back in the States on this year, on that year. And 27 years later, not a single time has dude popped up. Yeah, you see a bunch of pictures on the internet, but it's like, dude, I don't want to make it seem like, okay, you know, that whole stereotypical thing, like, oh, you being a racist because you're about to say all black people look alike, huh? No. Because, dude, there are doppelgangers out there, you know what I'm saying? Every community has a doppelganger. Doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, you're Asian, you know, Spanish, whatever the case. We all have doppelgangers out there. We all have lookalikes out there, you know what I'm saying? So odds are there's probably maybe one or two, maybe a few, you know, dudes out there who look like Pac. I mean, how many videos have we seen on YouTube where you get a black man, right? His head's shaved, right? Thin build. He's got the goatee and everything, and people claim that's Pac. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? So, anyway, let's just get back into this.
And ultimately, our persistence in this investigation has paid off. Let me walk you through a timeline of events that as we know them right now. Prior to September 7th of 1996, as we all know, Tupac Shakur was an artist who was signed with Death Row Records. And that Death Row Records and its CEO, Marion Suge Knight, were closely affiliated with the Mob Piru criminal.
And I'm glad you brought up Suge Knight's name, because I know some people were accusing Suge Knight of setting Pac up, getting Pac killed, because, oh, supposedly Pac wasn't happy, he wasn't getting paid, so he was on his way out of death row. Whether that's true or not, either way, why would Suge put himself in a position where he himself can easily be killed? I mean, Suge is a big dude. I mean, I know back then for sure he was a big dude. So why would you place yourself in the driver's seat and then have your man, right, in the passenger seat, knowing full well that there's a good chance you and your man could die? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to have Pac ride in the back seat while he's up front? You know what I'm saying? So that way, you know, Pac is guaranteed to get hit and Suge is not, because, you know, again, he's up front and Pac's in back. Think, people. Think. You know what I'm saying? Bruh.
Street gangs, and that they had an ongoing feud with the Southside Compton Crips. Dwayne Davis was the leader and shot caller of the Southside Compton Crips. And both of these...
And he a whole snitch too. 'Cause like I said, he tried to throw his dead nephew under the bus, lied about his dead nephew being the shooter, and then he threw Puffy's name out there too. Like, hey man, I had you, man. I had your back, man. I support you, man. You need to give me some love, man. You know what I'm saying? You need to throw a little something my way, man. 'Cause I had your back, man. If that don't scream, yeah, you know, Puffy is involved, I mean, I don't know what does.
These gangs operated out of the Southern California area of Compton.
And let us not forget too that Eminem also ratted out Puffy too in his MGK diss.
I'm with the dot still, but this idiot's boss pops pills and tells him he's got skills. But Kel's the day you put out a hits, the day Diddy admits that he put the hit out, they got pop kill, ah?
Oh yeah, that's right. The Epstein Island tourist also screamed out loud. You know what I'm saying? Who was possibly responsible for the death of Tupac. And dude's been in the game since what, like 98, 99? He's close to Dre. He's close to Snoop. You know what I mean? And so many other people who were close to Pac. So, I mean, obviously do know something.
On the night of September 7th of 1996, Tupac Shakur, along with Suge Knight, and members of their entourage, which include members of Mob Piru, came to Vegas to attend the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Members of the Southside Compton Crips, which included Dwayne Davis, along with his nephew Orlando Anderson, were also in attendance at the same event. As both were leaving the fight, members of Death Row Records spotted Orlando Anderson near an elevator bank inside the MGM, and at that time they began to kick and punch him near that elevator bank. I will now show you hotel security footage, as many of you have already seen, related to this incident. And on this incident, you will see Tupac Shakur, who's wearing a shiny satiny shirt, along with Marion Suge Knight, who's a large man in a brown suit, punching and kicking Orlando Anderson. Following this incident, you'll see hotel security intervene, and then they will leave the area of the fight. Little did anyone know that it is this incident right here that would ultimately lead to the retaliatory shooting and death of Tupac Shakur. Following this incident, Tupac and Suge Knight both left the MGM to make their way to a post-fight party, which was to occur at a local nightclub. At the same time, word had spread amongst members of the Southside Compton Crips of what had occurred inside the MGM, and then that's when Dwayne Davis began to devise a plan to obtain a firearm and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur for what occurred inside the hotel against Mr. Anderson. After Davis obtained a gun, he entered into a white Cadillac along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson.
See that, and that's funny that he mentioned the white Cadillac, because I keep hearing stories about the white Cadillac. Some say that it wasn't. It was Pac who supposedly entered the white Cadillac because supposedly he had a double riding shotgun with Suge in the BMW, and it was actually the double that got killed or whatever, you know, because of Pac's, you know, Pac's time in Hollywood, all those movies he made and whatnot. But I don't know, man. I mean, again, you know, we heard all the claims the dude may still be alive. He's gonna pop up at certain places at certain times. Hasn't happened yet.
Based on our investigation, this is where we know they were seated. At some point in time, as they were in the white Cadillac, Mr. Davis took the gun that he had obtained and provided it to the passengers in the rear seat of the vehicle. As they were driving west on Flamingo Road near Koval, they had located the black BMW, which was driven by Suge Knight, and in the passenger seat was Tupac Shakur.
And I don't know if you want to count this as a fun fact or not, but the last time I went out to Vegas, I went to go visit a friend of mine, and he actually took me out to the intersection of Koval and Flamingo. And man, you just felt something there. You just felt the energy there at that intersection. I'm just saying.
And as they turned around, they pulled up near the passenger side of that vehicle and immediately began shooting at Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur. Following that shooting, the white Cadillac fled the area southbound on Koval, and after our officers arrived on scene, Tupac was later transported to the University Medical Center, where he is treated medically and died approximately 6 days later on September 13th.
Now, an interesting detail they left out. They said he was transferred to the nearest medical center. But how was he transferred? Because some say he was carried by a helicopter. Some say he was taken there via an ambulance. I want to know how he was taken there.
My homicide section handled this investigation from its onset and for a short amount of time. And within a short amount of time, what we knew was that we were working a gang investigation where our victims, our witnesses, and our suspects were all from Southern California and not local to Las Vegas. Within the first few months of the investigation, our detectives knew most of the information I just briefed you on. However, we never had the necessary evidence to bring this case forward and present it for criminal charges. As time went on, this case had been reviewed multiple times by different investigators assigned to my section, but it wasn't until 2018 that this case was reinvigorated as additional information came to light related to this homicide. Specifically, Dwayne Davis's own admissions to his involvement in this homicide investigation that he provided to numerous different media outlets. In our section, we knew at this time that this was likely our last time to take a run at this case to successfully solve this case and bring forth a criminal charge.
And even if by some off chance Keefe D was not necessarily the shooter, being that he did place himself at the scene in the vehicle that pulled up on Pac and Suge and opened fire on Pac and Suge, it still makes him guilty by association. So either way, he's guilty. He's done.
It was at that time that this case was assigned to Cliff Mogg, a detective within my homicide section. And over the last 5 years, my section worked closely, hand in hand with the Clark County District Attorney's Office and followed a systematic investigative plan over the last 5 years.
Dude, and how ironic. See, Pac was shot and murdered in Vegas in September of '96. It is September of 2023, and they finally arrest, a suspect of said murder case. It's kind of eerie, ain't it? All this happened on the same month.
We've conducted countless interviews and corroborated numerous facts that were not only consistent with the crime scene on the night of the incident, but also corroborated and were consistent with the sequence of events that night. This ultimately led to us procuring a search warrant which was executed at Mr. Davis's residence in Henderson, Nevada. And following the execution of that search warrant, in close coordination with the District Attorney's Office, this case was presented to the grand jury, which ultimately led to Davis being indicted on charges of murder. Before I hand it off to the District Attorney's Office, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Detective Mogg and all the other detectives that were not only assigned this case and reviewed this case, but all the other detectives from other agencies that assisted us in this investigation. They know who they are, and thank you very much for all the assistance you provided. It does not go unnoticed. And lastly, one of the most important things, in my opinion, is we need to make this be a reminder that the charge of murder does not have a statute of limitations. This agency has
that's a relief. I'm certainly glad there's no statutes when it comes to murder.
Has been and is invested in solving our cold case homicides so that we can bring closure to those families and justice for those victims of homicide. And with that, I will turn it over to the Clark County District Attorney, Steve Wilson.
Thank you, Lieutenant Johansson. I appreciate it. Good afternoon. I am the Las Vegas, Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson. It has often been said, justice delayed is justice denied. It's a quote we hear often and for many,
And justifiably so.
many years when talking about our legal system, but not in this case. Today, justice will be served in the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Yeah, 27 years later, let's not discount that, all right? It's still delayed justice, and it still qualifies as justice that was denied. This should have been done a long time ago. You let this man roam free until he finally hit his 60s. Not good enough. Do better. Be better. Oh, yeah, too late for that, I guess.
I'd like to acknowledge the relentless work of the many Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department homicide detectives. We've mentioned Detective Cliff Mogg many times, and we can't mention his name enough. He is the detective, along with his colleagues, that brought this case here today to you. A Clark County grand jury has indicted Dwayne Keith Davis with 1 count of open murder with use of a deadly weapon with a gang enhancement. Davis will appear in court in the next few days or so for a hearing to determine his custody status and to set a jury trial date. This grand jury has been receiving evidence for months and has determined there is sufficient evidence to justify the filing of this criminal indictment. I've assigned 2 of my top prosecutors, Mark DiGiacomo and Banu Palal, to prosecute this case. I know a lot of people have been watching and waiting for this day. Tupac Shakur is a music legend, and for a long time, this community and worldwide have been wanting justice for Tupac. Today we
Now that I can't agree with. Yes, the man is a legend, and yes, he deserves justice.
are taking that first step. Tupac was actually quoted as saying, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside while still alive. Never surrender." Well, we didn't surrender thanks to the great work of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department under the leadership of Sheriff Kevin McMahill, Lieutenant Johansson, retired Detective Cliff Mogg. I am proud to announce the return of this document. This is the indictment we've been waiting almost 3 decades for. It spells out the facts and circumstances and what justifies a Clark County grand jury in returning an indictment. Justice will be served. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the least they can do is have that man be locked up for the rest of his life.
Thank you, Steve. I'd just like to say that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Section year over year solves over 90% of the homicides that occur in our jurisdiction. You won't find that anywhere else in the United States. For those family members that have lost somebody that we haven't solved that case, I want you to know, just like in this case, we're not going to give up. I also say to you that as we begin, we're going to take a couple of questions. I want you to remember in your questioning that this investigation, subsequent arrest, and now indictment is only the beginning of the process. And we are committed and invested in ensuring a successful prosecution as we move forward. So with that, we'll take any questions that you might have.
Sheriff,
Ken?
Excuse me. Sheriff, thank you. Have you been in touch with the Shakur family, anyone within here today? And if so, can you characterize what they told you?
The family has reached out to my office. I imagine also to Metro. We've been in communication with them. We understand that they are welcoming this news, they are pleased with this news, and they are certainly aware of the return of this indictment.
Do you anticipate them being at court for arraignment of Mr. Davis?
I don't think they'll be at the arraignment. I mean, that's a relatively short hearing, but I know that they'll be involved. I know that they'll want to be apprised of what goes on a frequent basis.
You're back.
Could you talk about any of the statements that he made that piqued your curiosity again or got you back into this case?
Jason, you want to answer that? We're not going to talk about any particular statements, but maybe he can address that globally.
What I'll say is there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out when it comes time for trial, but he provides his own series of statements that are very consistent with the evidence that we have on the scene that we've obtained through our investigation. I'll leave it at that.
I wonder if any of these people in the crowd, if someone's gonna have the balls to ask about Diddy's involvement, allegedly.
Can you identify anything that came from the raid, the service of the warrant in July that you didn't know before?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I'll say about the search warrant that we did in July, that we obtained information or evidence during that execution of that search warrant that corroborated information obtained through our investigation, and I'll leave it at that until we go to trial.
Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Tiffany Lane with Channel 3. So I know that this was obviously a big move. Is there anyone else being looked at this point? I know a lot of people have passed away since this incident, but is anyone else being looked at as part of this investigation still?
So as I stated earlier, in this case, the only living suspect related to this investigation is Dwayne Davis. All other 3 suspects are deceased.
Vanessa.
Thank you. Vanessa Murphy, Channel 8. Steve, can you talk about the murder charge if he is not the one believed to have pulled the trigger?
Yes, well, under Nevada law, and this is the law in most states in this country, you can be charged with a crime whether you're directly involved or whether you're an aider and abetter. We have an aiding and abetting statute, which provides that if you help somebody commit a crime, you can be equally as guilty. The best example is 2 guys that agree to commit a bank robbery, and one of them goes into the bank with a gun and actually commits the robbery, and the other guy is the getaway driver. Never went in the bank, but he assisted the guy that went in the bank, so he's equally guilty.
It's called guilty by association.
That is one of the theories in this case as well.
Last question.
Do investigators believe that Davis was the only person behind the plan to kill Tupac, or was he one of multiple people who came up with this plan?
I think the best way to characterize that is Dwayne Davis was the shot caller for this group of individuals that committed this crime, and he orchestrated the plan that was carried out to commit this crime.
And can you say how he obtained the gun or who he obtained it from?
We know that he obtained it from a close associate. That a lot of the actual details of who specifically, all that come out at trial, but he obtained it from a close associate of his.
Thank you for coming.
Lieutenant,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you say if Davis has said anything since his arrest?
Mr. Wilson, Steve,
Steve?
All right, so it looks like that's pretty much it for that press conference. So, okay. I'm for one and glad that Pac is finally getting his justice. I'm glad that the Shakur family is finally is getting their justice, you know what I'm saying? Justifiably so. Regardless of how long it took. Although, speaking of how long it took, I mean, it shouldn't have taken this long. I'm still of the opinion that it shouldn't have taken this long. This should have been taken care of a long time ago, you know what I'm saying? Because Keefe has a big mouth. As much as he tries to live by the code of the streets and all this and that, he still has a big fucking mouth. And he put himself in the car. He put himself at the scene. That should have been enough right then and there. And the fact that you let him continue talking or whatever, it's like, dude. And again, in the Art of Dialogue interviews that featured Keefe D, he kept mentioning Diddy's name. Of course, he doesn't mention him as Diddy. He mentions him as Puffy. Still the same person. He kept saying something about like, oh, he had Puffy's back, or he protected Puff. You know what I'm saying? Which makes it sound like Diddy has some involvement with this. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case or not, but if I were these guys, I would at least work on trying to bring Puffy in for questioning to see, you know, what role, if any, did he play in this. You know, because it's not just Keefe D who put him on blast. Like I said, Eminem put him on blast as well in his MGK diss. Other people have addressed this as well. I mean, there's a multitude of people who think that Puffy was involved in this. So I say at least bring him in just to see, what role, if any, did he play or whatever. You know what I mean? If you gotta give him the old lie detector test, you know what I mean? Strap him into a lie detector machine, you know what I mean, and find out. You know what I mean? Is Puffy also just as guilty as the people there at the scene of the crime? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, mixed feelings on this. I'm happy. I'm glad that it's finally, resolved. You know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, like I said, if this is true, if this is the case, then sadly that means that Pac really has been dead this whole time. You know what I'm saying? It's painful to say. It's hard to come to grips with. But I mean, unfortunately, that's just the sad reality of things. So yeah, R.I.P. Tupac. I mean, sucks, man. Because yeah, the man is a legend. He is an icon in the world of rap and hip hop. You know what I'm saying? There'll never be another Tupac. I don't care who you are, how hard you try. No one will ever match the energy that Pac possesses. No one will ever be able to, speak on some real shit like Pac did. You know what I'm saying? Bruh, you talk about a guy who wasn't afraid to call out all the bullshit that was going on at the time. You know what I mean? With everything that was going on with our country, everything that's going on with the world and everything. The man had no political bias of any kind. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a Democrat. He wasn't a Republican. He wasn't associated with any political party. He called out all politicians.
But we better give Obama props, cause what we got in office now's a kamikaze that'll probably cause a nuclear holocaust.
Which is something that's been sorely lacking, you know what I mean, in mainstream rap and hip hop. He was the only guy with the balls to call out the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? He was the only guy with the balls to hold his own community accountable for their actions. How many artists today can honestly say that they do that? Not many, if any at all. You know what I mean? And I know people are going to try to call me out on that, but here's the thing. If you call me out on that, and you're supposedly a Tupac fan, you don't listen to his lyrics very well. Listen to the song "Only God Can Judge Me." There's a line in that song where he says, and they say it's the white man I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here. He said that. That's literally a quote from "Only God Can Judge Me." Don't believe me? Go listen to the song yourself.
And they say it's the white man I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here.
And Pac also said too, in that song, that same song, when it comes to the media, don't believe in the hype. Don't believe in all the BS that the mainstream media is trying to tell you. He tried to warn us.
Recollect your thoughts, don't get caught up in the mix, cause the media is full of dirty tricks.
Way back in the 90s. Don't believe the hype. Don't buy into what the media is feeding you. And what's going on to this very day? People getting all riled up. People rioting. Why? Because of the BS that they be believing in from mainstream media. But anyway, I'm glad my man finally got his justice. Deservingly so. I'm glad the family got their justice. And Keefy D, I hope they lock his ass up for the rest of his life. And whatever whatever his cellmate does to him or his inmates do to him, that's on him, man. You know what I'm saying? He made his bed. Now it's time for him to lie in it. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. Let me know where you guys stand in this whole thing in the comment section down below. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, y'all know the deal, man. Like, comment, share, and of course subscribe. Appreciate that support. Shout out to everyone that's been subscribing. Don't forget merch in the merch store. Appreciate everyone that's been buying merch. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely a big help. And yeah. All right, y'all. Till the next one. Y'all bless one. All right. Peace.
Jason JV on YouTube.
What's up with you, Jason? JV.
What up, Jason? JV.
Just sending love, peace, and blessings to you.
Jason, you are my homeboy, my guy. Don't call me guy, pal. Don't call me buddy, pal.
Much love to you, JV. Chris Calico. Cali, baby. Oh.
What's up, G? My name is Jimmy Matthews. One half of the dimension dude on the street. Who said what's up, G? Keep your motherfucking head up. I don't know why you sad. If you sad, you sad. If you happy, don't be too happy. Don't be expecting shit. It's like throw your curves all the time. So be ready to be on the swerve. So subscribe, tap the little bell, turn on the notifications, and if you're not down with that, we got 3 words for you. Eat it, yeah!